Welcome back to the Pirate Ragnar channel. Today is Wednesday and we have some fork seals to finish. We left off with both forks completely dismantled, but today we need to get them cleaned up, so degreasing a couple of parts. Some of it we'll do here at the workbench. Some of it I'll take outside quickly and spray off with some brake cleaner. Don't like using that stuff inside. It is nasty stuff. Then once we're done with that, we can just go ahead and reassemble everything, and I can show you guys the process for reassembling them. This came in, and the day after it came in, I found the one that I had before. So that's very typical of me. It's also incredibly hot in here today, so if I'm sweating like a pig, that's just something you guys are gonna have to deal with. I don't like it any more than you do, but let's dive right into this, and hopefully this video will be a bit shorter and sweeter than my last convoluted, meandering video was. Let's get to it. Hey Dexter, are you gonna behave for me? Yep. Are you? No. Typical. Prometheus, come here. Lay down. Lay down. Stay. Stay there. Look at that face. That face says, I'm gonna stay here only as long as you're looking at me. On another note, I definitely know that my camera work on the last video was abysmal. So we're gonna try a different setup today, and I'm actually gonna make use of some of the equipment that I have that I just don't like digging out all the time. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, if this works better, especially for getting shots of the work that's actually done at the workbench, so that you guys can actually see everything, rather than last time where I could really only use clips where I bothered to hold the parts in front of the camera. Let's get to it. As always, whenever you're using any kind of solvent or anything, or cleaner, please put on some gloves. They're cheap, they're annoying, they're fiddly, but it's definitely worth it. All right, so today we're gonna use some of the Multi-Clean Plus. It's just a general high strength industrial cleaner and degreaser. So my main objective is to get a lot of the gunk out of the inside of here, and then if we can clean the outsides up a little bit, that won't be too shabby. We definitely want to get the insides nice and clean. So what we're going to do is we're going to clean it all out with this, scrubbing it down with some rags and whatnot, and then we're going to take all of the parts outside and we're going to spray them down with some brake cleaner, let that evaporate off, bring them all back inside, and get back to reassembling. I think it goes without saying that if you've looked at mauls at any point in any of these videos, that I am not really looking to get these things showroom quality clean. That's just not my intention with that bike. I don't mind her being cleaner than dirty occasionally, but I think dirt, grime, grease, and just adds character anyway. Just look at that face. He's just looking for me to look away so he can get into more trouble. Yeah, I know. I know. Now this one is significantly dirtier because this is the one that was leaking. So there's a lot more grime in here, and this is all the fork oil that had been leaking down pretty consistently over the end of the last riding season, and while it's been sitting over winter.
20 minutes later.
All right, so we're gonna get this kind of finished cleaning up a little bit. The insides of these are looking quite a lot better. They are discolored. That's not the end of the world. It's more about making sure that you don't have any kind of grime and buildup that you can feel that are gonna get in the way of the seals actually sealing the oil in. So those feel pretty good. I'll give them another once over, and then we'll take these things outside along with all of the other parts and spray them down and spray them down with some brake cleaner. So This stuff it's safer than it used to be, but this warning label at the bottom is incredibly important. It's an irritant, it's a poison, and it is flammable. These things are very, very serious. Please never ever use brake cleaner or carb cleaner without proper protection, and please always use it outdoors or in a very well ventilated area. I really can't stress that enough. I know so many guys who don't take that very seriously, and as they get older, they've suffered from some pretty nasty health effects, and one wonders how much that might have been caused by the fact that they didn't take a lot of these warnings seriously when they were younger. The other thing about this is you're not always cleaning brakes, but when you're cleaning brakes, it's even more important to be extra cautious, because brake dust and the brake pads and the material that those are made out of is so incredibly carcinogenic and bad for you that if you're using this to clean brakes, I'm bad for it. I don't usually wear a face mask or anything like that, but I would recommend it. Please take your health seriously, because a lot of things can happen on the road when you're riding motorcycles, but if your health deteriorates to the point where you're still alive, but you can't ride anymore, how devastating is that going to be? I'll see you guys when these are all cleaned up.
Eventually.
Yep. So I just recorded everything being reassembled with the wrong camera settings. So I have over an hour of the wall. And I now have to pull one of these forks apart so that we can reassemble it again. That's gonna be fun. All right, so as I've already explained, I apparently don't know how to work a camera. So we're gonna move on from that, and you're gonna see me disassemble one of these again real quick. Perfect. Okay, you may have noticed that my arm has this thing on it. It's because I have a problem with my arm. I've mentioned it in previous videos. Long story short, my using this thing to hammer in two of these things has really kind of undone me today. And I don't think I can manage doing another one today. It's just very painful for me. And I was a little too insistent. Hey, just like you butt, go lay down. Yes. Down. Yes. I was a little too insistent with it, and my arm is really, really hurting. So I've wrangled in a little bit of help, which is amazing. Chelsea's going to help me reassemble this one, and I figured that's actually a perfect opportunity to explain to everybody exactly how it gets reassembled. In my first go through, I used my phone, and I pulled up the schematics for this, because as I've mentioned on a number of occasions, if you're going to do any rebuilds on your bikes or anything like that, you should do your best to get your hands on a climber manual. I have one on my phone. I've now assembled two of these, disassembled them both, then disassembled it again, and so I have a really, really good memory now for the next day or two on how this is going to go back together. So I'm going to be able to easily instruct Chelsea on how to put this thing back together. we're going to put Prometheus away before we do anything so that he doesn't get too rambunctious during all of this. And then I will bring in Chelsea and we will quickly put this back together. Here's your beer. It's an obligatory part of rebuilding bikes and working on them. So cheers. Thank you very much for your help. What we want to do is bring this collection of parts and make it like this one. One of these is not like the other. It's sad that I don't get to show you guys. I did clean all of this, which is in the other shot from me outside. But once we came in with gloves on, all of these parts though were wiped down and cleaned and made sure that since we live in a zoo, none of the actual hair and stuff from the many animals that we have been left on them. So at this point, it is more than safe to work with our bare hands. I'm not gonna make us both put on gloves just for the sake of continuity from earlier. But if these things still had cleaner on them, they hadn't been wiped down, they hadn't been sitting here and the brake cleaner was able to dissolve over several hours at that point, I would strongly recommend that you guys put on some gloves. This needs to go inside this, as you can see. This is the top of the fork, like this, and the bottom of the fork is hidden inside the lower fork. Before this goes in though, there's several parts. This needs to go in it. This guy goes on the outside, and then these two parts need to go inside this before we can really kind of assemble everything. Then these things go inside here. So the first thing we're gonna get you to do is put this in here. Now, this piece comes all the way down to the bottom and sticks out, and then this guy goes on the bottom after it's already through. Okay. So first thing to do is to put this in the tube with this side facing down, and then we're gonna fish it out the bottom. So go ahead and stand that guy up. Yeah. Yes, and it's gonna be, the trick for this, because you already know that this fits, is we're gonna take the spring and we're just going to push it down. So grab the spring and push that down. Now you notice it doesn't quite come all the way. And what we're gonna do here is keeping the spring, so put your hand on the spring so it doesn't fall out. You're gonna turn it over, yep, and then press that against the table. All right, so now the spring is pushing up on the part that's in there. And if you look in there, it's because it's not quite lined right. So the easiest thing to do is to take this guy and kind of help align it, as it were. And then you're gonna find, as long as you're putting some pressure down on here, there you go, it comes out. You might not have gotten it completely, so there's a second spot that you need to get it to line up with. There you go. Okay, perfect. So now this guy goes on the end of here. Perfect. Now that that is together like that, this can go on top of here, and this bolt and this washer are gonna secure that in there. So go ahead and slide that guy on carefully. So bring that down. And this guy with this particular one needs to fall. So this one is a little different. Okay. So here, let's put this down for just a second so I can show you. I guess I should have specified that earlier. So just because of the way the axle goes in, this one, the axle goes through this one as a solid piece. And there's another part that bolts, that these bolts hold on to it to hold the axle on the other side. So that's why these two forks are a little different. It still has a hole through the bottom that you can access the screw by inserting the screw and then be able to stick a tool in there to get it. So what we're gonna do is we're going to make sure that the spring is sticking out of there, so the fork is completely compressed. And then we're gonna turn it over. And this compression here, don't worry about that. The compression though is what really allows to make sure that that piston that you stuck in there is gonna be kind of under tension so we can actually tighten the screw. Otherwise, both pieces are just gonna keep spinning with each other, right? So to make things easier, I'll hold the piston up, sorry, the fork up, and kind of apply some pressure. Go ahead and take that. You're gonna put it down through the top and make sure it goes in through that second hole as well.
It's sitting in there?
Yeah, perfect. And now take this guy and you're gonna use it on the long way because the short way won't be long enough to go through. Go ahead and stick it in until you can get it to catch and then tighten it. Perfect. And we'll tighten that a little bit more once it's all put together just to make sure that everything is good. But now effectively what we've done is we've attached the piston that you had inserted into this tube to the bottom of the lower fork, and this can't actually be removed anymore. So now the next step is to take this guy, and he sits, as you guys can see, and you'll be able to see here, there's a foot in there. A foot is like the ledge, as it were. So what we want to do is make sure that this sits down. There's one ledge, and then there's a second ledge down there, just a little one. Do you see that?
Yep.
So this guy fits between the first foot and the second foot. It actually rests on the second foot. Okay. But it just helps make sure that this fork, see how there's a little bit of play in it? We don't want that. And this is not designed. This is designed to stop oil from coming out. It's not designed to stop. Exactly. So this sturdies everything. So go ahead and slide this guy over the top and then down there. And he's not just going to fall in necessarily. You can kind of wiggle this around a little bit and hope he sets in. But the best thing to do, because he's going to take a little bit of force, this is the next piece that goes in. And this is, as you can see, holds or fits perfectly to the bottom of the fork seal. So this guy goes down this way. Go ahead and slide him on. But then what that's going to allow you to do is safely use this to kind of knock it a little bit. You're going to kind of knock this a little bit and move the fork around until you can get that to sit in properly. I watched it go down. So let's see. So now what we'll do is we'll try and get that piece out again and then take a look. And there you go. It can go down a little bit more, so we will, but do you see how it's now gone down? Yeah. So it needs to be flush with that first foot. Right. So let's give it a nice, but we know it's not going to damage anything if we wail on it a little bit more because it's in the proper spot.
So I'm not going to break something.
So now go ahead and smack it good a couple of times. Perfect. Let's double check. And there you go. See how it's flush?
Okay, yeah.
Now the next step is, put that back on. So go ahead and put that on.
Rounded side down?
So the rounded side is down in this case. Yeah. Always refer to your climber manual when you're doing these things, but yes, the rounded side is down, and that other side, the actual lip on it, as we said, corresponds with the outside lip of the fork seal. The next step is to take this fork seal and to put it on as far as you can get it and just kind of make it snug. A really, really good trick to make sure that you push these things down evenly and that you don't hit anything. So if I took, you know, like a random tool, like a screwdriver or something, and decided I was just gonna force this piece down until it works, there's a good chance I'm gonna mar some edges or I'm gonna deform the fork seal in some way. So to avoid that, you can have a piece like this that has a foot on it. Or another good alternative, if you don't have something clean like that, like let's say you only have something that's got a sharp edge, or like PVC that's not very thick, but fits around this really, really nicely, and you don't have this foot on it, then an awesome trick is to take the old fork seal that doesn't matter as much, go ahead and slide it on so it sits there, and then you can hit this all you want, and you know you're gonna more evenly press down on the fork seal that's in there. Lucky for us, we don't have to do that because I have a really, really nice tool for doing it. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna make sure that that foot is down, and then we're gonna hit this as evenly as we can. But to make sure, because there's always gonna be a bias based on where your wrist is. Right. You're always gonna apply a little bit more force, no matter how hard you try, in the direction of your wrist. So what we're gonna do is hit it once, turn it a bit, hit it once, turn it a bit, hit it once, turn it a bit, hit it once, turn it a bit. So that way we're kind of going around in a circle and making sure that we evenly apply the pressure. So I'll worry about the turning part though. Okay. You go ahead and do the wailing. Go ahead and hit it real good. And then we'll turn, we'll turn, we'll turn. And you notice how far down it's gone now? Yep. So stop. And I don't know if you can see in there, but just in here, I forgot to point it out, there's a little ridge. Yep. That ridge is what this guy sits into. Okay. So what we want to do is make sure that we're below that ridge. And I know in this particular instance that it's literally just at the bottom edge of that ridge is
you can see that
flush.
We're still overlapping.
So we're just up a little bit. So we're going to keep going down a little bit. Perfect. So let's take a look again. We're close. We're very close. And I think we're there. 2 more. Perfect. Yes, absolutely. All right. So now the annoying part.
What am I going to do with this?
Okay. So as you can see in this snap ring,
put that in, yes.
There's these 2 little holes.
Right.
And those holes are basically what allow you to compress the snap ring like that.
Okay. That was part of this, right?
What we'll do is I'll go ahead and get you to slide that snap ring down there. The snap ring definitely is bigger than the top of this fork.
So it needs to be compressed to be lined up.
And I found that the best way to really put these things in is to kind of make sure that this bottom part is tucked down so this part can't come up. So when you grab these and compress them, what we need to do is make sure that we don't mar this fork. That's the most important part, is that we don't scratch this fork tube as much as we can help it. And as soon as we pinch this and kind of start going down, that side's gonna slide down first.
Okay.
Because it's no longer gonna be pushed against the edge of the lower fork. Ask any questions you need?
The holes here are only to put these in, not to line up with anything.
No, yeah, absolutely. Okay. This can go in literally any kind of direction. There are instances where your snap rings have to go in a very specific direction. This is
they're not. Yeah, they're not going to line up with.
Go ahead and compress, and then press down as you're doing that. There you go. See how it slides down a bit? Yep. Once you're that far, you're good. Go ahead and take it out. Now we can be very careful, and we can just press this snap ring down and make sure that all the edges have actually seated themselves inside that little ridge, which it has. So there we go. Now that fork is completely in there, and you see how clean this section is? It's because that fork seal is doing its job. Go ahead and compress this slowly. There we go. Now the next step is this spring and this washer.
Spring and then washer?
Nope. Washer and then spring. I just decided to say it backwards so that it would confuse you and you would have to ask a question. So what I do find an easier way to do this is to uncompress this to right about there. Okay. And then you can put that washer on. And now you know it's gonna sit there pretty good. Then go ahead and put that guy on top and then pull this up the rest of the way. There we go. Now we need to attach this guy. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna press this down a bit till it meets the threads. So there, we are 99% done. So now is the beautiful, wonderful new dust seal. We can go ahead and throw that guy on, and then this is gonna match this guy here. So go ahead and slide that on. All right, and now this sits on this ridge here. So go ahead and try and get it on there.
Air release them.
And there we go. We now have 2 forks completed. Cheers. Thanks, babe. The next step is to fill these forks up. So as I said, that's what we have these syringes, the new one and the one that I found after the new one was delivered. But we're gonna do that after these forks are reattached to the triple trees in the bike, because that way we don't pull any more Alistairs in this project and fill some fork oil in here to a very specific amount that we need, and then end up going, oh, darn, and spill some out. So these forks, as the climber manual specifies, go between 187.5 and 192.5 cc's. We're gonna go right in the middle and say 190 cc's or 190 milliliters of fork oil. And then we're going to reattach all of the fittings that we need to seal them up with the air assist. But before we go anywhere, I just want to thank Chelsea again so much. My arm is killing me, and that made my day, just having you be able to help me out with that and actually put those together. If you guys have any questions about the process that we went through this, or if there's any suggestions, something that I instructed Chelsea incorrectly, then please leave a comment down below. Let me know. The only reason I've gotten as far as I have in being able to work on motorcycles is because I ask questions or do stuff really stupidly and then say, hey, what the heck did I do wrong? I'm certainly not a mechanic by any stretch of the imagination. So if you guys have any tips or suggestions for me, please let me know. I'm happy to hear it. Hey, Rocket. So narrowed it down to this part being the one that's not fitting very well. And I think it has to do with the temperature. So we're going to try and put that back in there now that it's nice and cold. Let's see if that works. So I need you to sit all the way down where you're supposed to. That seemed to have worked. So now that's actually sitting down there all the way. Hopefully I'll be able to now at least get the fork seal all the way down to where it's supposed to be.